Sinners came out this April and was a massive hit. With a fairly average budget of $90 million, it made $366 million. Using some box office revenue math, that's about $141 million of pure profit. That's good, and I mean good. Even better, it's an original movie in the Big 25, making a big splash and killing it at the box office. How crazy is that? In 2024, every single one of the top 10 movies was part of a pre-existing IP. And so far, the exact same for this year too. Because Sinners is only number 12. The top 10 so far this year is Nisa 2, Lilo and I Wanna Give Bob Iger Stitches, a Minecraft movie, Jurassic World Rebirth, How to Train Your Dragon to Shoot a Fireball at Me, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, Superman, the F1 movie, Captain America Brave New Worlds, and Thunderbolts. Society is so cooked it's not even funny anymore. Anyway, Sinners wasn't a Lilo and Stitch where it made money, but sucked f***ing donkey balls. This was incredible, and it was seen as such. A lot of people saw it and thought it was the best of the year at that point. A lot of the people have moved on to other things, but a lot still think it's the best of the year. If you didn't infer from the title, I am one of those people. Despite the fact I spent the last video glazing 28 years later to Timbuktu and back. For the record, this isn't a comparison video between the two movies, this is just about Sinners, partly because I never want to use footage from 28 years later ever again, because Sony legitimately wanted to kill me, and they nearly succeeded. If the border from last video is back, I'm sorry, blame Warner Bros, not me. Oh yeah, spoilers. The thing about analysing literally anything in this movie is that it all plays into the themes. For this video, the benefit of that is that I'm going to have a hell of a time analysing the themes of this movie. Obviously during the theme section. The disbenefit is trying to analyse literally anything else whatsoever. You might see we struggle with that throughout the video, because I'm going to try and save everything about the themes for the theme section. But as a character, Smoke works perfectly. Trying to pin down who the actual the protagonist in this movie is. I think the four leads are Smoke, Stack, Sammy, and Mary, and maybe Remick. Actually, yeah, completely Remick. What the hell am I talking about? So that's who I'm analysing, all five of those guys. Him and Stack work perfectly as polar opposite duos. They have small disagreements. They feel like real brothers. Smoke has a backstory with Annie and a dead daughter. It's a tragic backstory, of course, but it fully humanizes him. But thank Christ, unlike most Hollywood movies, it doesn't beat him over the head with it. He's not a sad loner, he's not constantly grieving his daughter. He's quietly sad, and it adds to him as a character, while not completely knocking you out with it. His ending is also so perfect. That's a great character arc of realizing he does care for people, more specifically, his family. And it's reflected when in his final moments at the end of the film, he has a flashback of holding his, at that point, newborn daughter with his, at the time, wife Annie. It's his last moment of happiness, letting Smoke die peacefully. Of course, we don't have that Smoke. The closest thing we have to a protagonist and lead of the movie is dead. Of course, that's obvious, he's the lead. Sort of. But it's still a fully satisfying ending. Dude, I'm legitimately having such a hard time not talking about the theme. That section is going to be expensive. Okay. Smoke is also just really entertaining to watch. He has such a distinct, cool personality, as well as his fighting talent that just makes him so gripping, even outside of all the emotional depth. Smoke is such a cool character. He is insanely fun to watch, got great depth, has a perfect ending, got incredible themes attached to him, more on that later, and is a fantastic part of the Smokestack twins. Even if I think I like his counterpart, Stack, just a little bit more. Speaking of which, be entirely honest with you for a moment. I don't think Stack is better written than Smoke. I think they're equal in absolute cinema. Oh my god, Ryan Coogler, I love your writing so much. So, yes, I love both of them. I just think that Stack is my personal favourite of the two. I think as a personality, I enjoy watching it a little bit more. Plus, I love the fact that he's the first one other than Mary to be a vampire. And the fact that the vampires in this movie is really good. Anyway, aside from my love for the character, he is fantastically well written. This is another case where I'm slightly f***ed, because it's all from the themes. Themes. God damn you, Ryan Coogler, and your fantastic writing. Stack has a fantastically distinct personality. He's sarcastic, he's not afraid. Basically, his entire personality is summed up by that one line. No, we cousins. Yeah, that basically summarizes it all. But other than that, Michael B. Jordan is so incredible in this movie. Playing two characters, especially two such distinct characters. Anyway, Stack. Him and Mary's relationships feel so natural. Him and Smoke fighting towards the end. Dude, it's really emotional and it's so fun to watch, while also hurting to watch. And, yet again, being so emotional. Not to mention how well written the contrast between the twins is. That tends to relate to the themes. I mean, okay, Smoke makes Remick go away while Stack is bopping his head the entire time. Smoke doesn't give a second thought when Remick does go away and Stack says goodnight. It's really good and very convincing, just the small differences. Stack is also just so consistently fun to watch. Now, while maybe not being the best out of the cast, partly because everyone in the cast is so incredible, both writing and acting, I think he's my favourite. He's just so fun, he's so well acted, he's got so much depth, he's got rich themes, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore. The themes, I'm going to talk about that later. Yes, get used to me saying those words a lot about the themes. Stack is absolutely incredible, the twins are fantastic. I love this movie so much, man. So, Sammy is like entirely theme, so this is gonna be fun. All things considered, Sammy is the main character, despite not having the most screen time. He is the one who has the complete character arc. The entire movie is about what side of the theme he will end up on. He is the protagonist, yet he has minimal screen time, and I think that's a good thing. Not only because I personally think Sammy is kind of annoying, not in a bad way, for the sake of character, but if he had more screen time, holy shit, I would have gotten so sick of him. And I honestly think he would have taken the entire movie down with him. But keeping him away from the direct spotlight keeps him fascinating. Sammy is distinctly the nervous one. Twins are their own version of fairly boisterous. But Sammy almost blends into the bag. He's shy, he's nervous. But boy can he make good music. Like fire music. The entire soundtrack is peak. More on that later. His arc is investing all the way through. Plus the opening, one of the best jump scares like ever. When Remick flashes on screen, it's the peak of cinema. I was sitting there fully invested when I saw it the first time, and on both my rewatches, it struck me how genius it was in hindsight. The way Remick appears on screen, in the context of what's happened, it's so fucking smart. Sammy is a fantastic character. He's an excellent protagonist, with an excellent arc, interesting character progression, a plethora of great scenes that you just can't look away from, with him in the center, like the scene where he said the Lord's Prayer to get rid of Remick, but it doesn't work. As well as just like so many other great scenes in such a great movie. And if only one character could survive. Yes, I know Mary and Stack technically survive, but they're vampires. Plus, I consider the post-credit scene to be more of a bonus than anything else. Plus, they are still vampires. So, if only one character could survive, Sammy is the perfect one. And his final scene, was arc completed, so good. Mary is great. The fact that she is a vampire first is just so perfect. It's an excellent subversion. Because you can guess she's gonna die. Because she and Stack are, yeah. But then, she doesn't die because of that. She dies later but for an entirely different reason. Which I just thought was a really interesting subversion. And generally a smart move. Oh, also, Mary's character has a ton of themes. Because, of course she does. But also, Mary is just so interesting to watch in the first half. Because there's always a sense that she doesn't quite fit in. Because she's the only white one there. And yes, I know she has some black heritage. But like, come on. And watching her try to fit in is really compelling. But one of, if not my favourite moments in the movie, as well as with Mary, is when Smoke has to kill Annie because she's gonna turn into a vampire. And Mary sincerely screams for Annie. It showed that the vampires really do think of everyone like family, and they want to make one big family. It's a fascinating concept that they really meant it, and weren't just manipulating the cast. No, they were genuine. And who led to this moment? Mary. It's because of Mary. Plus, like everyone else, she's so fun to watch. The way she commands the screen, like when she tells Stack off for leaving her, she's fiery and is almost like Stack, while also being completely different. Not to mention Haley Steinfeld, who is giving such a fantastic performance. She is in everything I loved it. Right now, she is in everything that I love. The Spider-Verse movies, Arcane, she's even in the main Marvel somewhere, though I don't really watch Marvel anymore. She's like new Hawkeye, I think. And now she's in this. I don't know. Please make Beyond the Spider-Verse come out sooner. Please, pretty please. Anyway, Sinners. A lot of her fire energy comes from the performance, not to mention that she is just perfect casting. Like everyone else in the movie, I could not imagine this character being played by any other actor. Haley Steinfeld is an actor on the rise, and I cannot wait to see her in more stuff with her in it. Not to mention how great the line, "It's not what it looks like," is, after having just bitten Stack and to Smoke looking like his brother is dead. Mary is such a fantastic character. Okay, also that she's really hot. Sorry. Remick has themes attached to him. He's so distinctive. He's got fantastic lore. But I'd be lying if I said the main reason I love him so much is because of how fun he is to watch. Jack O'Connell has this infectious energy that makes it so hard to stop watching his characters. Both this and Jimmy Crystal in 28 Years Later. Because of him, Remick has a great energetic personality, which makes him so just, oh, I am jealous of this man. He should be worried, because I am gonna become him. Seriously though, other than Jack O'Connell's concerningly good performance, no matter the performance, it can't be good without good writing. So the writing also has the same infectious, distinct personality. It's all around him. It's in his dialogue. It's in his actions. It's in his singing. I love Road to Dublin so much. I've seriously been listening to it on repeat. It's a problem. Please release the CD of the soundtrack for a reasonable price. I just want to spend my entire life listening to it in my car. I just seriously love Remick. I love the way he acts, I love the performance, I love his personality, I love he's Irish, more on that later. Everything about him is so perfect and it's so great. Remick just cements how perfect the characters in the movie are. He also got such an incredible design, which goes for all the vampires but starts with him. Red eyes in movies can look really corny sometimes, but here they just look so perfect, and I could stare at them for days. And his giant claws, man, if this movie isn't up for any Oscars, just how pissed off I'm gonna be is out of this world. You don't quite understand. Remick is like, I've said this so many times, but Remick is so goddamn perfect, and I still love Road to Dublin very deeply. I don't know if he's my favourite character in the movie, because so many characters in this thing are just so goddamn peak, but he is totally up there. I think my favourite character in the movie is a five-way tie. Guess who the five are? Something I don't usually take too seriously is originality. By which I mean I still take issue with overuse of pre-existing IPs. Like, you'll be shocked to know that I also hate Disney live-action remakes and legacy sequels, but as long as it's a new IP, I tend not to mind if it's derivative, as long as it's not too egregious. I'm looking at you, Rebel Moon. Which is why originality isn't something I usually bring up. Like with Mickey 17 or 28 Years Later, both movies I really enjoyed, but I don't really talk about their originality. I acknowledge that fucking weird, but I don't really compliment their originality, even though it's fully there, fully present, and completely worthy of praise. I just don't really talk about it, because even if something isn't original, if it's still a good movie, I don't mind, as long as it's not a complete carbon copy. Have you gathered the fact that I don't like Disney live-action remakes yet? However, sometimes, just sometimes, something comes along that is so stunningly original that you can't help but acknowledge it. You can't help but sit there in amazement, wondering how someone's able to come up with something so good and so goddamn original. Case in point, Sinners, because it's crazy. And Ryan Coogler being able to come up with this is particularly crazy to me, because this is his 5th feature film, and he has never made an original story before. Fruitvale Station is a true story, and his other films were Creed and both Black Panther films, both IP-based films. And he finally has a chance to make his first truly original story. Because sure, Black Panther was a standalone film in the Marvel Universe, but it still had to function in its mythology. But Sinners, new IP, which better not be milked to death, Warner Bros. I'm fucking watching. New universe, and all the creative freedom in the world. And he cooks up the most creative, original, fully entertaining piece of media of the year. Honestly, maybe of the decade. Actually, possibly the 21st century. And yes, I know. Structurally speaking, this movie is practically identical to From Dusk Till Dawn. In the first half of that movie, it's a gangster film. And in the second half, it becomes a vampire movie. Sinners, the first half is a... What is the first half, actually? Like everything else, it's so incredibly original, it's basically impossible to pin it down to one genre. But anyway, the first half of Sinners is whatever it is, and the second half is a vampire movie, structurally identical. But I think it falls under the fact that A, even the most original films had their influences, and B, it falls flat because the first half of From Dusk Till Dawn is so different from the first half of Sinners. They're incredibly different, no similarities inside. Plus, the vampires are completely different in Sinners than they are in From Dusk Till Dawn. Plus, this movie is just better than From Dusk Till Dawn. Like, I love From Dusk Till Dawn. I saw it for the first time last month, this July, and it's an insanely fun time. But Sinners is so good, it stands so far on its own. Anyway, Sinners is one of the most original movies in the 21st century, and that is worthy of praise. This movie gives me so much hope. Because right now, Hollywood is not in a good position. We are living in a world right now filled by sequels and remakes. And I don't want to be one of those guys, you know, the ones, the kind you say, oh, why did Hollywood stop making original movies? And people are just so mad at Hollywood for doing so. But the reason is pretty fucking simple. Because no one goes to see them anymore. Mickey 17, an original movie, bombed, losing the studio probably $100 million. Meanwhile, Lilo and Stitch, a remake, just made $1 billion and secured the future of Disney live-action remakes. And obviously there are exceptions on both ends, like Snow White thankfully bombed. Thank goddamn Christ. But to continue my point, Elio, an original movie, bombed, losing Pixar a ton of money. A Minecraft movie, a franchise film of sorts, barely failed to make $1 billion. I honestly cannot think of a single original movie in 2025 that didn't bomb. Obviously there were some, and I've just forgotten them. But when I was looking up some original movies that did well at the box office, I asked ChatGPT, and it f***ing said, let me read this out loud. Minecraft movie directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan. This adaptation of the popular video game grossed approximately $946.8 million worldwide. It set a new record for video game movies, surpassing the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Jesus Christ, ChatGPT. Anyway, back on topic. The only original movie that hadn't bombed this year is... you get the drift. Sinners. Like I said in the beginning of the video, while the movie has slipped out of the top 10 of the year, it was a smash hit at the box office, and it will be funding Warner Bros. For a while, for better or for worse. But it honestly just gives me hope. A lot of time I look at the box office, and it is kind of impossible not to feel incredibly cynical about it. But Sinners is the ray of hope. An original movie that has broken through and become a smash hit. The only thing bigger than its box office is the pop culture relevance it's had. Sinners came out in April, and was number 1 in the Letterboxd top 10 probably till the start of June. And right now, as far as I'm aware, it's still there. Not in the top spot anymore, obviously. That would be impressive and fairly well deserved, but nothing can maintain that top spot for that long. But this movie has had a much bigger pop culture relevance than, like, Lilo and Stitch. already anything other than the Minecraft movie. This was a pop culture moment. However, me being me, I still find a way to put a somewhat cynical eye on it. Despite the success of Sinners being one of the greatest stories of the year, it was Warner Bros. Who made this. Ryan Coogler has publicly expressed lack of interest in making a sequel. I feel like they'll just get some random other director to franchise this, and it'll turn into another generic vampire franchise. I mean, going back to From Dusk Till Dawn, they made multiple of those movies. Now, it was a trilogy. However, the sequels had no pop culture relevance whatsoever. I mean, seriously, did you know that From Dusk Till Dawn was a trilogy? With the sequels obviously having none of the cast or crew, and they just look completely generic and forgettable and generally No, I have not seen them. And I am pretty scared this will end up happening to Sinners. And if it is what happens, I don't know, I'm gonna be pretty depressed. Because it happens so much to these movies. But oh well. Hopefully Ryan Coogler will pull a David Fincher and outright refuse, because that's what any good director would want to do. But sometimes it isn't up to the director. God, I am being cynical. I don't know what my motto for this chapter is. Actually, I do. F you, Warner Bros. If you watched my last video to the end, you remember the part where I just read out Letterboxd reviews and defended them. But unlike 28 years later, Sinners has not been a divisive movie, so it's a little bit more hard to find reviews. However, I've had a really fun time recording the last one with this format, so it's back! Yay! 5 negative reviews of Sinners and my defense of it. Review by Sammy V. 2.5 stars. If you know me, I love a good vampire film, and this had some great vampire hijinks. I loved all the folklore tie-ins and the period setting. Actors were all superb. That being said, I was bored out of my mind through the first half. Pacing was a big problem for me, and even when the good part started, it wasn't enough for me to get back in. Well, I just think that first hour is very necessary to the rest of it, and I guess hypothetically you could cut it down, but I don't think you should, because I think the first half is just as engaging, and I think it perfectly sets up the world and introduces all the characters and just, what they are, what side of the theme they're on, stuff like that. And I think that's a real strong suit, because I think you kind of do need that first hour to really get to know the character. There are quite a lot of characters in this movie, and it takes a good amount of setting up. So I don't think it is. Like, obviously, if you were bored, I can't blame you. That's your opinion. I'm not here to judge your opinion. Just saying. I just think that first hour is what makes the movie so good, and without it, the movie would just fall flat on its arse and just be really unsatisfying, because you don't care about anything actually happening in the vampire back half. So yeah, thank you, Sammy V. This review is in a different language, so I have to use the Letterboxd translate feature. I was originally in Portuguese and it's using Google Translate, so if this says anything wrong, blame Google Translate. I have no better reliable source. I don't speak Portuguese. Okay, review by 40JI. 1.5 stars. Wow, a lot lower than last time. I don't know why I watched it. A mix of comedy and action that makes no sense, apart from the part that are clear and seem complex, which in fact are just ridiculous, just like the movie. I don't really know what in the film is comedic. I guess there's, some one-liner zingers, like Navico's and things. I guess that's kind of comedic, also not really. That's more so's character. I definitely wouldn't say this is by any means a comedy. And then the action's only really in the second half. But I don't see why that makes no sense. I think there's really no comedy in it, but I don't get why that wouldn't make sense, because action comedy is an entire genre that does exist. obviously. Like, you know, Hot Fuzz, the Nobody movies, like, you know, there's a ton, like a lot of action comedy. Apart from the parts that are clear and seem complex. I don't really know what those would be. Like, when this is probably Google Translate's fault, it can translate in a way where that sentence doesn't make that much sense. But I don't really know what isn't clear. I feel like the film, even with all its, you know, rich themes and such, the actual contents of the film is fairly straightforward. And I think that's one of its strong suits. It doesn't try to act more complex than it is. So I don't really know what it would be. It seemed complex. I don't think anything. You know, the themes seem complex, and they are complex. So that's that. And then, but then the actual events of the movie, if you take the themes away and just look the movie at face value, it's really quite straightforward. Nothing that really tries to be complex. I don't really know. Thank you, 40JI. One word review by WW Hit AK4. 2 stars. Cheesy. You know what? I respect the bluntness and just, you know, just saying what you think in one word. However, I do not think that a single moment of this film is in any way cheesy. Because, like, none of it's cringe. You never find yourself cringing watching Sinners. You just get, like, so invested. And the thing about cheesiness is that even if you're, like, enjoying it, you're not necessarily that invested, you know? And Sinners doesn't do that. It's very. Cheesiness would mean performances would have to be cheesy, the writing would have to be cheesy, you know, the lighting, stuff like that would have to be cheesy. And I don't think any of it is. I think it's all very. It's played straight, which makes it very hard to be cheesy. Not often sometimes I think being unintentionally cheesy are when they play it straight. I think in this, because they play it straight, it's very, very uncheesy. Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. I should maybe made up a word. Uncheesy. What do you know? I don't have a better term for it. Uncheesy. Like, I don't think any of it can be cheesy. The way it's framed, as well as the performances and the writing and the setting and the lighting and literally everything in this movie is so fantastic. So, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so actually, honestly, sorry for overanalyzing your review, which is a single word, which wasn't meant to be taken that seriously. It's like the only one I can find. But thank you, W Wit AK4. Review by Ali Moner, 2.5 stars. What was the point from the vampire's metaphor? Why should I just sympathize with the protagonist just for being black? Why is there no moral to the story? Michael B. Jordan's charisma, though. Well, what was the point from the vampire to be a metaphor? I assume what they're trying to say. What was the point of the vampire to be a big metaphor? Which, I don't know. Why is anything a metaphor? Why shouldn't everything just be spelled out and just laid in front of you to say, this is this? The answer, that would be boring, and it would also treat the audience like a bunch of idiots. So the point is, the audience, you have to figure it out by themselves, and the vampires to, you know, symbolize the theme. That is the point. Like, if symbolism just isn't your thing, I can get it, but I think you have to respect it, even if you don't like it, you know? Just because you could send this metaphor critique towards literally anything that uses something as a metaphor instead of just saying it, which is most of the best movies. So why should I just sympathize with the protagonist just for being black? I do. Obviously, them being black is a very important part of the film, like no getting around that. However, they're not the only reason to sympathize with them. Like, Mary is white, and you still sympathize with her, don't you? And, like, you sympathize with the characters because of their struggles, most of which don't pertain to being black. Some of them do, obviously, quite a lot of them do. But, like, I don't think you really are meant to sympathize with them just because they're black. It just so happens that, like, blackness is a part of their identity. Like, why should you sympathize with Django Freeman and Django Unchained just because he's black? Like, that's not the only reason he is black. It's an important part of the story. The only reason that's the same here for Sinners. And why is there no more to the story? Well, considering you were saying earlier that, criticizing the vampires being a big metaphor, I think there's a more to the story. Because the metaphor is for assimilation and, sticking with your culture versus assimilating to other cultures. That's the theme. If you get into the next section, that's the theme of the movie. And film goes very far to accentuate that, using the vampires as metaphors. And the moral is, don't assimilate, stick with your culture. That's the moral. So there definitely isn't moral. But, a lot of things don't need to have moral. Like, it's good to have a theme, and, like, you can have a moral. But, like, you don't have to. I mean, Pulp Fiction, that's one of the great movies of all time. That doesn't really have a moral. Does it? The protagonists are hitmen and druggies. Like, and murderers. So, but that's one of the best movies of all time. So, like, and, not only does this actually definitely have a moral, I also don't think the film needs to have a moral to necessarily be good, because there is a difference between moral and themes, for the record. Thank you, Alia Monia. Final review by Chris Mayrides. 1.5 stars. Messy and self-indulgent. Highly disappointed. Well, I don't think it's either of those things, honestly. I don't think it's messy because, in my mind, to be messy would mean it's all over the place, doesn't really know what it's doing, know what it wants to do, doesn't know what it wants to be. But Sinners, it knows exactly what it wants to be. It regularly, and it's always got the consistent theme throughout, and it never differs from that. And it never differs from the group of characters, never differs from the premise. So I don't think that kind of prevents it from being messy. And self-indulgent, I don't think so. Like, I know this movie's fairly long. It's like 2 hours, 17 minutes, I think. And I get that's fairly long. But I think it all is necessary. And I think the film would be worse if you cut down any of that. I think all needed and all necessary, meaning it's by definition not self-indulgent. If this went on for 2.5 hours, 2 hours 40 minutes, 3 hours or something insane, where it's just really bloated and actually messy, then then go ahead, call it self-indulgent, because that very much would be. But that's not what this is. To be self-indulgent, it'd have to be bloated, and Sinners is anything but bloated. It's all so incredibly purposeful and meaningful and utterly fantastic, and it's told in such a perfect way. So, yeah, thank you, Chris Mayrides, for your review. yeah, this is what you have all been waiting for. I've been teasing my love for this movie's themes the entire time. Half of this video so far has honestly been me saying, I'll go more in depth in the themes section. And now I've been building to this section the entire forking time. So here we go. This section is gonna be expansive. Just thought I'd warn you. But also, the kind of people with ADHD, YouTube short attention spans, they won't be here till now, let's be real. Now, before I start ranting at top speed for a very long time, I just want to say, subscribe. I'm trying to make YouTube videos consistently, which is ironic because I missed last week. Because, look, just hear me out. My computer was f***ing dead. I couldn't work on it in any way. Okay, I'm trying to get back into it right now. So just please subscribe, I need it, I'm very small. Anyway, also follow me on Blue Sky, just to see me say random and follow me on Letterboxd to keep up with my film life. Trust me, there's a lot. Anyway, back to the themes of Sinners. I teased this way earlier in this video, saying I thought it was a clever subversion that Mary died first and how she died first. And the fact that she was being promiscuous, but that's not why she died. Because when you think of all the classic horror tropes, the first victim tends to be a girl who's being promiscuous. Don't have sex, that was the first rule on Randy's list in Scream. It is a well-known fact. But in Sinners, Mary goes out to the vampires saying she wants to see if they have money. But when she gets there, Remick goes, nuh-uh. He said that Mary's in deep, deep pain and wants love. She goes to the vampires because she doesn't fit in. And that is such a cool and unique way to start the path to a character's death. This underpins the entire theme of the story. Other thing, if I ask you who the protagonist of this movie is, you'd say the Smokestack Twins, right? Yeah, well, at first, me too. When you actually think about it, it's Sammy. Not only is he the one the vampires come for, the one that they want, because every single character has a strong opinion, a strong thought on the theme. The theme being sticking with your culture versus assimilating in the one that's been forced upon you. Every character has a stance, every character has purpose. Every character is on one side of the theme. Everyone. Everyone except for Sammy. Because when you tear back the layers, the true question of the movie is, which side of the theme will Sammy end up on? Not Smoke, not Stack, not Mary. Sammy. Both the vampires and his father and even Stack want him to assimilate. Speaking of which, his dad's identity also just fits in perfectly. He's a preacher, Christian, and Christianity is something that was forced onto their culture. His father has strongly chose assimilation, which I'm going to call the red side of the theme from this point on. And sticking with your culture, I'm going to call the blue side. I mean, let's see who's on what side of the theme. Mary, Stack, Cornbread, Sammy's father, and Remick are strongly on the red side. Slim, Smoke, and particularly Annie are on the blue side. Sammy is stuck directly in the middle. Annie is by far the most pro-blue side. By far. It isn't even a competition. She is basically the embodiment of the blue side. It is not a coincidence that she's the one who figures out that what's attacking them is vampires. The more in tune with your heritage you are, the more you can recognize the reality of the opposing force. It makes complete and utter perfect sense. So, Ryan Coogler perfectly frames her death. It sounds dark, but it's secretly genius. She gets bitten and asks Smoke to put a stake in her heart. She's the only character who dies and doesn't become a vampire during the vampire attack. She's the only character who gets a normal death, because she'd rather die than assimilate into the vampire culture. She'd rather die than go to the red side. It's so brilliant, and I love it so much. Then there's Smoke and Stack. Stack is fully okay with embracing culture that isn't his. He doesn't care. He is fully willing to do so. Case in point, when he tried to tempt Slim, he does so using foreign goods. Not the goods from his culture, Not the kind he's familiar with, the kind from a foreign culture. Smoke, however, isn't. When the vampires start their first song, Stack is vibing to it, having a great time, bopping his head back and forth. But Smoke is unimpressed, so he does the only logical thing to do in the situation and threatens them. At gunpoint. And after they decide they don't want to get shot, Smoke stares coldly without caring, while Stack wishes them good night. Smoke's love interest is Annie, the character who is by far the most in touch with her roots, which reflects Smoke's thoughts on the themes. The one who figures out the true threat, the one who dies and doesn't become a vampire. While Stack's love interest, Mary, is by far the one who is least in touch with her roots, the one who doesn't recognize the situation and thus gets killed first. It's so smart. I just want to leap in and analyze it forever. I adore it. I actually f***ing adore it. Speaking of Mary, she does technically have black heritage. Her grandfather was black, I believe. Basically all the characters are friendly towards her, but there's this underlying feeling the entire time that she doesn't quite fit in. She hasn't integrated with any culture, not black or white, making her very easy vampire prey. Do you get it? It's so smart. Now, look at one little thing that has fascinated me from the moment I saw it. A question that's irked me from the second I realized it. Why? Why the hell is Remick Irish? What's the point? What did the purpose of him being Irish actually serve? Especially when you're just gonna make him speak with an American accent for most of this movie anyway. But then it hit me. Another work of genius towards the theme. Remick is a vampire. He's by far the character who pushes the most for the red side. His entire purpose is to transform, thus assimilate people. Well, please notice when he reveals he's Irish, he goes full-on Irish at the same time he goes full-on vampire. Well, because Sinners doesn't take place in the modern day. It takes place in the past. More specifically, when Irish people were looked down on. There is a reason why he continues to have the American accent deep into the climax. I mean, he's already sung a song in his Irish accent, but he continues to speak with an American accent. The reason is simply because he has fully assimilated into the American culture. Throughout the entire movie, one thing is clear. Vampirism is a metaphor. All of it. It's a metaphor for assimilation. When you become a vampire, you can stop worrying because you've joined the group who are hunting and oppressing you. Another reason why the setting is so genius. I haven't mentioned it yet, but the setting for this movie is a key point for the themes. I mean, for horror movies in particular, writers just get lazy a lot, and I mean a lot. I mean, how many movies take place in a cabin in the woods or a haunted house? A lot. And I mean a lot. But I don't think it's ever been in the benefit for the themes, other than the film actually titled Cabin in the Woods. The only purpose it serves is for the plot to not be ridden with holes. The setting should do more than just be plot justification. Remick is Irish. It clicked with the theme perfectly. And it wouldn't make sense if it wasn't for the setting. Are you getting my drift yet? The town is still in the shadow of racism, at a point where it is illegal, but black people still aren't welcome in most places. All the black people are still struggling to settle into culture, without that culture being horribly tainted by things such as Christianity. Case in point, the climax. In a story, the way the hero defeats the villain should always underpin the theme. Remick is trying to come after Sammy, and Sammy said the Lord's Prayer, hoping for the best, hoping it'll ward off the vampires. And at this point you roll your eyes. You think, oh, what the hell? Because in most vampire movies, that's exactly what happens. Christianity will ward off the vampires, usually the imagery of the cross. But in this story, Remick enjoys it. So much so, he joins in. In fact, all the vampires join in. Not only does it subvert the vampire tropes and genre, but it also works because Christianity is something that Remick assimilated into. It's the main religion of the main culture that's been making its way through the town. It's basically everything Remick's character stands for. Sammy saying the Lord's Prayer to Remick is also a sign that he hasn't completed his arc yet. It didn't work. So what does Sammy do next? He grabs his guitar, the guitar being a symbol of his culture, and he whacks Remick over the head with it. Just blam. And it burns him terribly, buying him the time he needs for Smoke to appear and stab Remick. Symbolism. It's perfect symbolism. Everything about this scene is worth analyzing for days. It's so smart. The way Sinners goes about themes is just so genius. I haven't really seen any other story do it the way this one does. And it just goes to show, you shouldn't think of the characters, settings, theme, and whatever else as being separate things. Because in a great story like Sinners, they all blend together so perfectly that it seriously annoys people like me trying to divide it all up into neat little sections for a video essay. I have no idea whether or not to clap, or be angry, or both. I don't know how to feel, but I factually know that this is genius. It's so smart. When everything in your story blends together for the themes, the kind of thing where the average person, the person who only occasionally goes to the movies, will see it and love it. They'll sit and adore it, but after the fact, they won't be able to figure out why. They won't be able to figure out what invested and gripped them so much. Because it all blended together, seamlessly and perfectly. Themes of everything in this movie. It's so genius. I love it so much, I spent an extremely long time talking about it. Conclusion time. Sinners is my favourite movie of the year. I know we still have a little while of the year left, but I'd seriously be surprised if Sinners was beaten that time. It's a truly special movie, filled with perfect themes, perfect characters, incredible originality. It's seriously special. There isn't a second of it that I don't adore. It's one of the best modern semi-musicals. Honestly, one of the best live-action semi-musicals of all time. It's just, oh, I adore it. If you haven't seen Sinners yet, go watch it. Even if you don't like horror movies, I think you'll still like this. Partly because it isn't that scary. Like, I'm sorry, but is anyone going to disagree with me on that? But also because if you don't know the horror movies for a lot of other things, such as flat depth, no themes, bad characters, issues that constantly plague the genre, Sinner doesn't have any of that. It's fully a masterpiece. One of the best of the year, actually the best of the year, one of the best of all time, potentially? Maybe the best vampire movie of all time. It's just splendid. And my next in-depth video is going to be a big one, so I might have to miss next week, which I'm sorry, I don't want to. I'm going to try my best not to, but I can't promise anything. It'll be on Squid Game, where I analyze and ultimately rank every episode of the show. I really hope you enjoy that. We're all mad here. I'm going to go eat a bowl of cereal, I think.